Okay, and I think we're live. Hi to my second live stream on this channel. I've done a few before, but I lost the channel. I was going to do some JavaScript this week, but I'm not feeling it. So instead we are going to draw an icon. I shared how to create this cloud icon on Twitter yesterday, and people want to see how to really go through all the steps. So we're going to take it step by step. We're going to take a few circles and we're going to merge them into this cloud icon. Background is that I'm compiling a set of icons right now that I want to eventually sell, and the cloud icon, of course, is one that will be part of the set later. I'd say let's jump right in. I changed something with the setup of the stream today. If there's a bit of a delay between messages in the chat and what I can see, if you have any questions, throw them in there, and I'll hopefully catch them before we continue. So on the left, we have the finished icon that we're going to recreate. And I did this earlier. We're not going to recreate the exact icon. We're going to create a slightly better version. To start, I want to show you that so we're using Sketch here, and focus on the application also. We're using Sketch here, but we could do the same in Figma or Adobe XD. But this is what I'm most comfortable with, and that's, I think, has the nicest methods when working with SVGs. I think there is a slight difference, or was a slight difference, between how Sketch does it and how Figma does it. So I'm sticking with this. Because I have this reference icon, let's use it. We don't have to recreate it in a vacuum. I know that this, so I'm using my circle tool here. I know that this is a circle here. And then I will need another circle that covers this area here. You can see this is exactly the size of that. If I toggle that on and off, this will exactly cover this big part, this big fluffy part. That is a circle that is 10 by 10 pixels, or has a diameter of 10 pixels. We need another one over here, and another one of the same size here. So we have two circles that have a diameter of 6, one that has a diameter of 10, and one that has a diameter of 7. That one will be a bit tricky later. But now that we know the basic sizes, let's put them over here on our canvas. I create all icons on a 24 by 24 pixel canvas because I like to keep some safe area over here. So the outer 2 pixels on all the icons that I create, those I rarely use, because that's, if you have the icon right up to text, there's some space between them. And if there is a particularly large icon, or an icon that is diagonal, like a plane, or an icon that is mostly horizontal, we have some extra margin. We're not limited to this part here. So how do we make what's on the right now look like the cloud on the left? We're first going to start out. Let's look at one of these circles. We see here that let me try this, that we have a fill over here, a fill setting, which is the inner color. We have a border setting, which is the color of the border. And here we have some shadows, inner shadows, blur. Those aren't set to anything at the moment, and we're not going to need them. And what we are going to do now is we are going to take these shapes and we're going to combine them. We're going to merge them with one of 4 Boolean operations. We can union them. We can take 2 independent shapes and we can merge them so they become one. We can intersect them. So we only get the area that is, if we have a Venn diagram, people that do this, people that do that, and then you have like psychopaths in the middle, and that part that is the middle part that is part of both of these areas, that is the intersection between them. We could also cut something out of something else, which is which we would exclude it, and the operation is called, what's that called? The operation is called intersect, right? That's when we need to stamp something out. And we also have difference, which would be anything that is part of one shape but not part of both. I don't think we're going to need the difference operation today. If I now took, let's move those over here. If I took those 2 circles and I would select them both, I can do that either here or on the left in my layers. If we select them both and we do combine, then we see we only have one shape now. It is only one shape over here as well. And they share a border and they share the most prominent shape, their outline, their shape. But I don't want to do that. If we did intersect, this is the part that is part of both of the circles that we started out with. Not what I wanted either. And we could do subtract, which would stamp one circle out from the other. If we look here, because of how they are ordered on this layers list, it always works from top to bottom. So oval copy 3, that is the one on the right here, and oval copy 2, that is the one on the left. And if I now select these two and I say cut one out from the other, it's going to take the top one, so the right circle, and it's going to cut it out from the left one. And that was the wrong one. That was also the wrong one. Subtract. S for, I have keyboard shortcuts here. Command Alt and S for subtract. And it gives us the right circle cut out from the left circle. If we had them ordered differently in the list over here, so let's say we do this one on top of this one, and then we do the operation, we can already see over here that the left circle now overlaps the right circle, and if we subtract that, we get the other side, the other half moon. But none of those is what we want, so let's undo all of that. That was the position that we needed them in. We don't want to merge the shapes like that. If I now did a union on these two, it kind of looks like what we have over here, but if I merge all of them, we're missing a few details. Like we want this nose over here. We could even stick with that, but I'm going to show you another way. We are first, notice how we have a fill color and a border color for each of them, and with convert to outlines, I am taking away the body, and everything that was a border before is now the fill of that shape. So this circle over here, that is really made up of two circles. This is important. So we have one, it's called path here because that's what it calls them by default. We turned this shape into paths. We have a small path here, and this is the symbol for the intersect. So something was stamped out of something else. And you can probably guess what this other one is. That is the larger shape. So we have this one circle here, really is two circles. It's a larger circle that we stamped a smaller circle out of. And with that on my layer list over here, I can actually take that and I can move it around. I can move around the inner circle that was stamped out and get an odd shape like that. It's not going to help us, but that's how the math works underneath everything. Let's move it back. Let's color them because we want to refer to them in a bit. So let's say this one is red. I hope this works for people with impaired vision, but I'm gonna describe them anyway. So we have one red one, one green one. Let's make you blue, and the last one over here, let's make you pink. Okay, so 4 different colored and mostly different sized circles that we now want to turn into a cloud. We are going to start with, let's say this area between the green and the red one here. If we look at the finished result, this little bend over here, we don't want that as part of the red circle. So we really want to stamp that part out so that the top right part of the red circle disappears. I'm going to draw another circle here, and that is exactly the size of the inner green circle that we had. I could have copied it from the other one, but this is the fastest workflow for me, and I'm going to take that, and I have to make sure that this is on top of the other one, of the red one. So I want to take the gray circle, and I want to remove where it intersects with the red one. I've selected them in my layers list, and I can now subtract them, and it disappeared. What really happened is that this is now our shape. We took something that was part of the red shape and we stamped something out. And as we had before, I could move that stamp anywhere. I could say instead I want to stamp out the top left part, but this is kind of where I wanted to have it. And let's move that back. You go here. Yeah, same height as this pink one over here. and where it overlaps with the green one. We want to do the same with the green one. This line here, this bottom left line, we want to remove. So again, I'm going to create a circle. And now we can see that this gray circle is below the green one. The green line isn't interrupted, isn't overlaid. It's overlaid by the blue over here, but the green covers the gray. So if I now were to select these two and were to say cut it out, right? So with the subtract action, I would get this weird shape. Because what it did is it took the shape that laid on top of the other and it cut it out of the lower shape. And because the green was on top of the gray, it cut out the part of the green one from the red one, and that's not what we wanted. So let's undo that. And for that to be corrected, I need to move the gray layer on top of the green one. So this on my layers list, that is the green one. And subtract, stamp it out. I use the keyboard shortcut now. Command Alt and S for subtract. And at least we have this little ridge over here, that part taken care of. These others that we want to remove, we'll do in a bit. Then we're going to do the exact same with the blue and this part of the green here. So do that a bit faster. A gray circle that is exactly the inner part of the blue circle, and cut it out of the green shape, subtract. And if we just move it out for a bit, this is what the green circle looks like now. It's okay that it has some very thin lines here. We're going to clean all that up in a bit once we have the basic shape in place. And the other way around as well. So an inner circle for the green. I can see that it is below the blue, so easiest is to always move it to the very top of the stack. I could have also gone with move forward, move backward. This action here moves it, every time I do it, moves it down one layer, but I want it to be at the very top. So let's move it up here, and I want to select the gray one and the blue one, subtract the gray from the blue. And this is now our blue shape. It doesn't really look cloud shaped yet, does it? We're going to do the same with the pink. Pink is the gray circle is below the pink one, so we need to move it up. Select the two, select the gray, select the pink, and subtract it, cut it out. And now we are going to remove, let's say we're going to remove the bottom left part here on this. No, what's actually easiest? I think it's easiest to go with this little nose here that we have, because there is a tiny thin line here in the between the green and the blue that we definitely don't want. We want this to have a little nose over here, and to be able to see that better, I am going to put a guideline here. So in Sketch I can move those guidelines wherever, so I can see where if elements are level, if they're on the same height or on the same width, same dimensions, but this I don't need. So we see this little nose here, that is exactly on the line, and it is part of, I would say, the green, the bigger part of the cloud. And oh, we see that I already made a mistake, but we'll fix that in a bit, that's fine. Because that is a circle, and it is exactly on this line. Now, by default, when I move things around, Sketch will only let me move them around to full pixels. We can see a very slight grid below this, and I can't move it arbitrarily. I can only move it by pixel values, and you can see it has an X and a Y position here. Those will always be integer numbers, but of course they don't have to be. I can go in manually here, and I can say instead of at Y position 10, and it goes from low to high. So this is 8, and as the number increases, the dimension, the position goes down. So I want it to be between 10 and 11. Let's go 10.5 and place it here. Now we see we're missing the green, right? The green line has to go all the way down here, because Sketch keeps all the math that we do, keeps all the operations that we do. I can undo what I did before. So by selecting this here, I do command click, so I could go down all through all the layers. It shows me where the green circle is on my list of layers, and I can see all the operations that I did before. So here we had cut out the part of the red circle, and we had cut out this part of the blue circle. And as we can see, we need this tiny green part here. We want to keep that, and that operation had actually gotten rid of it. So let's not do that. What we really want to remove then is everything that is south of this line. We can also use a rectangle for that. Just a rectangle that covers a part of the green circle. And I can do the same as I did before. Select this, select the green circle, subtract it, and it is gone. I still have access to the operation, so I can see the outline of this rectangle here. I could move it around, I could move it up, I could go the other direction, and you can see where it has a tiny little notch here. I could do whatever, and because I really want to remove everything that is green down here, I can make it this big. That is fine. It doesn't need to match exactly. It doesn't need to hit pixel exactly on the pixel, as long as the area that I want to cut out is being cut out. That's fine. I can also go a bit over in this direction. We can keep that, and then we have that covered well here. We can see we also want to get rid of that section of the blue circle, and we can do the same. Put a rectangle here, and let's say we want to cut out over here. I'm not sure, so let me cut out this part of the blue by going, and I can see that the gray overlaps the blue, so that direction is fine. Subtract it, and it looks like this. Sweet. And we also want to get rid of this part over here, this bottom right part of that red circle. Do another rectangle, and we can see if we zoom in. If we zoom in, that was the circle that had a diameter of 7 pixels. So if I position my rectangle that I'm going to cut out here, it's not going to cut out enough. If I put it over here, it's going to cut out too much. What I really want is exactly the middle position here, because that's where the line would smooth out again. That I have to do manually again instead of 5. Gonna go with 5.5 to confirm that that is exactly the center of the circle. We can go back to the original outer circle shape, and that looks like it's off. Oh, that was 5.4. Okay, good. I accidentally typed 5.4, and by selecting the circle, I could see that the middle point, because this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 indicators, 8 draggable handles around this shape. I can see that the center of this circle isn't where that rectangle was. So if I cut that out now, that won't end nicely with the line here. It is very, very minor. It's very slight, but we want to make sure that if we have the option to always put it exactly where we need to cut something out. So I need to go back to this shape here. This is the rectangle that I just cut out, and let's move it to 5.5. And now we have this part of the cloud taken care of, and they look very similar now. And we are going to do the same with the pink one over here, where we want it to end exactly halfway. That was 6 by 6, so in theory, a rectangle that's half that size, so 3 pixels wide, 6 pixels high, that would take care of that. And if I take that and I cut it out, down here it looks perfect, but up here I'm missing a shape, right? This little thing over here, we also wanted to keep, and I have multiple options now. I could take another tiny rectangle that's just 1 by 1 pixel by 1 pixel, and merge them. That'd probably be, oh, why are you not merged? Give me the outline here. Okay. Because I hit subtract. Subtract. That would look fine, but really it's supposed to be a bit curved here. You see how this line is a bit curved, and we would take away that curve by doing that. So instead we are going to take that rectangle that we just cut out, and instead of cutting out everything over here, we're gonna make it a bit smaller. I'm just gonna cut out the bottom left part, and here I can do another rectangle. I can take this rectangle, make this square, and it's okay if we cut out an odd shape. You need to go here. It's okay if we subtract an odd shape like this little mouth here. We're not gonna see in the final result because everything's gonna be black, and we're not gonna notice these little kinks. And that is it for the pink. That's the fastest we could have done. We can see there's this tiny little curve here now, ever so slight, but it adds up, and we can see later if we want that or if we do want to remove it. After all, to make it look more cloud-like, let's add another rectangle here. And as you can see, I have the same problem with this half pixel position, because this is either it covers part of the circle or it doesn't cover enough. It needs to go exactly at 5.5 pixels in the horizontal position. And over here, if I now move it up, if I move you up and I make you 1 pixel wider, we have the same problem. We have this tiny little notch here that we don't want. So instead of 13 pixels wide, you are 13.5 pixels wide. And let's actually start merging them, because these shapes, they will be part of the same object, right? And I can take them as they are, and by going with the merge action, with the union action, they are now one single shape. I can see them in my list of layers as that as well. There's one combined shape. That's this little tack looking like thing. I can see all the shapes that make it up. I could go all the way down and I could look at this rectangle over here that I cut out. I could move that around. I have access to all the operations that I did before, which is neat, but honestly, we're not going to change anything about that anyways. And we can do the same with the green, right? That was done as well. We're going to merge the green with that, and we're going to take this little nub over here as well. We're going to union all of them, and this is now most of our cloud. The blue I didn't touch, and I didn't touch intentionally, because here we see we also have a tiny little nose. We could just cut it off here as well. We could say, give me a rectangle here, cut out this shape from the blue, subtract it, and now it looks kind of odd. We could figure out how to merge those and how to bring those together. For example, we could have said earlier that we do want to remove that little curve, and if I remove that little curve now by subtracting it, we could say that looks like a cloud, doesn't it? And I would merge these two, I would union them. Also a cloud, but this little nose over here gives it a little more character, makes it look a bit more rounded, a bit more friendly, and that is why we are going to undo all of that here. If we zoom all the way in, we want to have a 1 by 1 pixel circle here that we want to have part of the end piece of this part of the cloud. Moving it by full pixels doesn't work because it doesn't quite hit. Even over here, we'd have to move it down a little, but we are going to move it to, let's try 17.5 pixels. Let's move it to the right by half a pixel. Let's zoom in, and that looks all right, doesn't it? Let's check. That looks like it matches pretty well, and we could keep that. Let's try and keep that. So we need to get rid of this part of the blue circle. Let's have this rectangle, so we can't cut out this because we'd cut out too much up here. We could try moving this up half a pixel as well. That's not quite it, and if I move it half a pixel to the side, that looks like it could match, but I don't think it does. No. So instead, what we are going to do, let's move you back to 15 and 12. We're going to zoom out a little, and we can edit this shape. We have access to all the corner points. I could take this top right corner point and I could move it around. I could move it over here. I could make this shape, or I could delete it. And I am going to delete it because what I really wanted was a triangle. Move out a few levels. Let me select it again. Now maybe if I move that up by half a pixel, that looks decent. Let's make it a bit more transparent. Okay, I'm gonna show you because it looks okay, but it doesn't really hit exactly the right angle. So if I take this and I am going to subtract it, and actually let me change this a bit more. So we are going to, I can add points to this as well. I can make it I can give it a fourth corner again. If I take this and I want to cut it out from this blue circle. Why won't you let me select it? This and the blue, subtracted and zoomed out. It looks absolutely fine. There is nothing to complain about at all. But being perfectionists, that little tiny notch over here, you can't see it when I have it selected. That tiny little notch over here, that's not supposed to be there. And this gap, that's not supposed to be there either. So instead, we are going to do some trickery with them. We are going to ignore the blue circle. This is now just a reference. We are going to redo the entire blue circle. Put another 6x6 pixel circle here. Turn it into an outline, so it only has a fill color, doesn't have a border anymore. And now we are going to take that and we're going to rotate it in a bit. We're going to move it around because, okay, let me show you. I will put a circle here. If I moved this circle down a bit, it would be dead center. That would be exactly where this matches. If I select this here, we can see this is 100%. Let's zoom in even more. That is 100% where these need to intersect. So we can take that. We can group them. Now before I merged them, so I created a new shape out of two existing shapes. Here I don't want that because if I were to union them now, the small circle will be gone. Instead, I want to group them, and I can do that with right-click group selection or Command G, and I can now rotate it. It looks like only the little circle is moving, but of course everything is moving because these two are now combined, and I can move it to an arbitrary position. Why do I want that? Let's move it back to 0. Because I am going to cut out a part of this circle. Let's take this rectangle here and let's cut it out. Subtract it from here. Let's ignore the blue. I'm going to turn off the blue. And let's turn off the other one as well. I want to rotate that. That's going to be the nose that we now rotate into place. But if I try to rotate that, if we bring back the blue and the green, so it needs to move around exactly the blue rail almost that we created. But the rotate operation always rotates around the center of the shape. And because I cut out half of the circle and it has an uneven shape now, it doesn't rotate where the blue rail is. So to have this be even again, I could do a few things. I am going to add back a 3x6 rectangle that is going to close with this. So this is again, I'm going to put that into this group as well. Just drag it into here because this is now a 6x6 pixel shape. And if I move that, you can see it stays in place, right? This is just a counterweight that we use. So we can move it around to any position. If I go Shift and the arrow keys. When I have this radial field selected here, it goes in 10 pixel increments. So this is where we started. Let's move it to, let's say, 45 degrees. You'll usually want to go with right angles, so 90 degrees, or if that isn't possible, 45 degrees, or sometimes for smaller ones, half of that, so 22 and a half, but I'm not sure if Sketch doesn't let me do half radial points. So we're gonna do 45%. And now, because I have everything in place, I can take this rectangle and I can cut it out now. Now that everything is in place, I will cut it out of the circle that we have below it. So Option, Command, and S for subtract. Look, we can see a tiny piece of the blue circle that we had before here. And if we now turn that off, it covers it exactly, and it gives us this nice nose over there as well. That means we can remove the blue one. We're not going to need the blue one anymore. These two we can now, because these are independent. One of them is this tiny one, and the other one is the bow around it. I don't know the word. Sorry. Is that big a circle around it? If I were to merge them, union them as they are, I get this shape, and I can take that as is, and I can union it with that part of the cloud. The group over here that we had, that is now empty. There's nothing else in here, so I can get rid of that. And let's zoom out. Oh, change that position here. This is the same cloud now. It's not 100% the same, and we're going to look at why in a second. But we could now take this, and we could make it any color. This is one single shape. As far as Sketch is concerned, we can select it anywhere here, and we can move this cloud around, and we're done. There's one more optimization that we can do. But first, let's look at the differences between this and the original cloud. So let's make this one solid color again. And I'm going to move that over here so we can try to find the mistakes. If we zoom in a little, we see two differences, and we're going to do that the other way around also to see if there's anything else that black had that red doesn't, or the other way around, I think. First is this little notch over here where we intersected the first two circles, and this one goes down a little further. It has a little notch over here. If I decided to get rid of that now, I could have another rectangle here. We see this would take off too much, so go to 5.5 pixels and subtract it, and that difference would be gone. But I think I like it, so I want to keep it. And the other one is over here. Now that is interesting, because I think the solution we just did, where we rotated a half circle into position by exactly 45 degrees, is a bit cleaner. So this red piece here, that is in a better position, and I think I want to keep that. So I'm going to update my icon library with that later. But otherwise, it is the exact same icon. I could move this around. Looks pretty identical. Let's change the order. So the red covers the black perfectly. The black didn't cover the red because the red had a bit more, had these notches. But that is the cloud icon drawn. There's one more thing we need to do before we use it. First of all, we want to usually export them as black. We can recolor them with CSS later if we want. But here over in the artboard, we have the list of layers, and every single layer is still in here. We can see all the shapes along the way. We can see all the rectangles that we used. Did I just change something? No, it's fine. And that is a lot. And each of those would be its own dependent entity if we exported this as an SVG now. So if I took this thing and I exported it to SVG, I would have all these layers, or most of these layers. In this case, Sketch does a little optimization for me, but since we don't need that, we're never going to go back. We're not going to go back. We're not going to go in here and say, let me move this rectangle where we cut something out. That's not going to happen. What we really want is this, and kept exactly as it is forever. So we can select the topmost level here, and there is this operation in Sketch that is called flatten the shape to a single layer and reset its origin. Not sure what the origin refers to here, but look at this list of layers. This is not even everything. It fills more than my screen now. And if I hit that action, boom, it collapses it again. But that's not just a collapse all the layers action. That by itself would be helpful, but that's not what it did, because if I expand it again, let me zoom in, I only get 2 paths, 2 shapes. And we can see there is a larger one and there is a slightly smaller one that is, and this is the operation for cut out. This is the difference. So we have a large shape with a small shape stamped out of it. If I select this smaller shape and move it around, look at how everything moves in the cloud, and I could move it out as well. So we can more easily see that our cloud really now consists of these 2 shapes, a large cloud outline and a smaller cloud body, like the inner part of this cloud, cut out from the larger one. We can take that, we can merge that, we could move that around, but none of those will ever look good. So we can keep that, and when we export this icon now, it's a single path, because there's one operation here, and that will give us a smaller output as well. That even is, when we have it at this stage, that gives us one more option. Let's say we want to have a fill version. Most of the icons that I draw are those outlines, those thin lines around the shape. We could also say, let's remove the inner part, and we have a fill icon. Let's now go in here, and we could color that with this gradient. And we have a cloud icon that we can use on our site. I can actually bring that back. And that is it. We can now give this any color. We could move this around. We could resize this. This is just math. This is magic. SVGs are pretty fantastic. Usually I would now take this, set it to black, rename the artboard to cloud so I can find it later, and we can export it, and we're done. Yo, Ollie. Hi, thanks for showing up. I haven't had really live interaction with this much. If you just dropped in, this is us done. We wanted to recreate this cloud icon, and I think, was it? Oh, almost 45 minutes later, half an hour later, we drew a happy little cloud. Let me know if that was interesting at all. If you want to see any other icons, I have a big selection. If you go to lovelycons.com, there's a link under this video somewhere. I'm going to release my icon set eventually. I have some legal stuff to take care of before I can do that. But if you see anything on in these icons that you want me to recreate, that you want to see, hey, how do I create a house? How do we create a lock? Post it in here. Let me know on Twitter, and maybe I'll do another one of those. And then I will probably do another session sometime next week, I think, where we might go back to JavaScript. I had a thing on JavaScript on my portfolio that I wanted to add, but for now, this was a bit more fun. Thank you for tuning in, and I think I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. I need to find the end stream button now, so hang around while I awkwardly try to navigate this YouTube Studio interface until I hit the button. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Cool, bye-bye.